got moments, there's grace for today. The coffee's on and the chaos can wait. Take a breath, lift your eyes, you're standing strong, with joy in your heart and Jesus alone. This is Monday Morning Moments for Catholic moms. This is Monday Morning Moments for Catholic moms. Wake up, mama, there's grace for today. The coffee's on and the chaos can't wait. Take a breath, lift your eyes, you're standing strong, with joy in your heart and Jesus alone. This is Monday Morning Moments for Catholic moms. This is Monday Morning Moments for Catholic moms. This is Monday Morning Moments for Catholic moms.
Good morning, everybody. It is so good to see you. Happy Monday morning, and welcome to Monday Morning Moments for Catholic moms, spiritual mothers, and grandmamas. We are going to be working on that title. Look, if y'all don't mind, let's click the like button all together to let YouTube know that we are here, and hopefully YouTube will push us out to some other people today and let them know that we are here and we are live. Let us begin by our saint trivia. This Catholic saint who has a feast day this week was born in Australia in 1842 and became the first Australian canonized saint. She co-founded the Sisters of Saint Joseph to educate poor children. Now, she had a rough road. She was actually excommunicated in 1871, but later reinstated and remained faithful and obedient. I did some research around what this was all about, and it looks very complicated, and I didn't want to get any of the info wrong or unnecessarily slander any side. So if you're interested in a very dynamic story, you can check out her life. She opened over 100 schools across rural Australia and is the patron saint of abuse survivors for her courage in reporting clergy misconduct. And a lot of the commentators and biographers believe that her first report of abuse is what started this downward track to her excommunication. Luckily, it was all resolved and she was canonized by Saint Benedict XVI. So, do we know who she is? This is Saint Mary MacKillop. This is an Australian name, so if I got it wrong, if you're listening from Australia, please drop a note in the comments and let me know. Her feast day is August 8th, and I imagine she's a very special saint for our friends in Australia because she was the first canonized Australian saint. Those of us in the US know how excited we were to have our first canonized saint and now our first American Pope. Okay, let's begin. Just as a reminder, your handout, there's a link in the description. I'm getting better about this. Link in the description to get your handout. There's also a link if you just want to get on the newsletter list, which only means ladies. I don't share this with anybody. I keep your emails private just for me. I would never sell you out. It just means that I will send you an email either Sunday night or Monday morning, so you can have all this ready and you don't have to put in your email each time. This is the handout and what it looks like this week. Welcome to Monday Morning Moments. It is August 4th, 2025. Look at that. I got the date right. Our theme is letting go of control and tasting divine providence. Before we begin, let's start how we always do after our journaling in real time and a little bit of fun and trivia, let's begin with prayer.
Dear Jesus, you see through every layer of our thoughts and longings. You know how quickly our minds can fill with worries, how easily we chase control instead of trusting you. You taught us that life is more than possessions, more than plans, more than imagined safety. Help us today to loosen our grip, to breathe in your peace, and to let go of the burdens that were never ours to carry. Quiet the anxious scripts in our heads. Help us hear your voice more clearly than our fear. Teach us how to be rich in what matters to you, to choose faith over fear, surrender over self-reliance, and presence over performance. We invite you into this space and into our minds. Rewire our thoughts with truth. We are listening. Amen.
Unlike last week, which could have...
Are you a Catholic mom running on empty? If the laundry's piling up, meals feel like crisis management, and the guilt is louder than the chaos, you're not alone, and you're not failing. You're in survival mode. Introducing Survival Mode, Homemaking for Catholic Moms, a compassionate, faith-integrated online course created by Catholic therapist and mom of 3, Amber Pilkington. This isn't a course about getting it all done. It's a course about doing what matters most when you have the least to give, blending Catholic theology, mental health science, and real-life homemaking wisdom. This course offers practical tools for meals, laundry, parenting, and peace. Through printable worksheets, spiritual encouragement, and step-by-step videos, this course helps Catholic women create gentle, grace-filled rhythms that honor their limitations and their vocation. It's not about perfection, it's about presence. To learn more, visit the Catholic Counseling Institute website and click on the Online Courses tab, or check the show notes for the direct link. Survival Mode, Homemaking for Catholic Moms, because grace belongs in the mess too.
Had 3 or 4 different separate parts and reflections. This was one cohesive long parable. In our gospel yesterday, Jesus warns us that life does not consist just in our possessions. The rich man in the parable built bigger barns, but he forgot his soul. He trusted his plans, not in God's providence. This gospel calls us to loosen our grip on control and to be rich in what matters to God: love, mercy, presence, and surrender. To know that our true security is not in what we store, but in whom we trust. So let's do a little bit of exegesis. You guys know I love this. It allows us to go deeper into the story. When he says, tell my brother, remember he said, teacher, tell my brother to share his inheritance with me. And then Jesus replied to him, friend, who appointed me as your judge and arbiter. Let's talk a little bit about what was going on there. In Jewish culture, rabbis were often asked to settle inheritance disputes, especially when the father had died. So this man isn't really asking Jesus for discernment or for an arbitration, which is why I think he says, you're not really asking me for this. He's actually demanding that Jesus take his side. But Jesus refuses to play the judge here. And why is that? It's because the real issue isn't justice. It's greed disguised as fairness. Jesus redirects the conversation from the external conflict to the internal motivation of his heart. And this is similar to how thought diffusion, which is our skill for the week that we will talk about in a moment, helps us notice the storylines that we cling to without seeing the deeper emotions beneath them. So we're beginning to introduce our skill. Then, when he says, take care to guard against all greed. The Greek word here, pleonexia, if that's how you say it, this actually means an insatiable desire for more. So whenever we're talking about greed in this sense, it's that insatiable desire for more. This gospel is not saying that physical things are bad. It's about the desire of the heart, about relationships, but also when I heard this definition of insatiable desire for more, you know what else it reminded me of? Dopamine. Many people think that dopamine is the chemical of pleasure. And in a certain sense, it is. But more than that, dopamine is the neurotransmitter of seeking. Dopamine says just one more. Dopamine is what gives us the motivation to act. So if you take rats and you engineer their brains, take out all the dopamine and the dopamine receptors, and they're on one side of the cage and they're hungry and the food is on the other, they won't get up and eat. They'll just starve. So dopamine is what makes us act. It's this insatiable desire. So this is not just about money. It's also about the belief that more will make us safe, settled, and happy. So it goes beyond that. And this is also the lie of dopamine, is that if we just have one more, just this one time, just this last drink, just this one more cookie, I'll start eating healthy on Monday. Just one more. Why is it so insatiable? Because there's this implicit belief that that is where safety or settledness or happiness or desire is fulfilled or ends. And of course, we all know through personal experience that that's just not how it works. In CBT terms, or cognitive behavioral therapy terms, this is a core distortion. It's that if I have enough blank, then I will finally be okay. Thought diffusion, which is our skill today, helps us to gently untangle this illusion. We notice the craving, we name it, and we let it pass by rather than obeying it. It could also be that we notice the urge. We talked about a few Monday morning moments ago about having an emotion and then having an action urge that is paired with that emotion. So it could be an urge, it could be a craving. And then we name that and let it pass instead of obeying it. Who knew there was so much neuroscience in the Gospels? Of course, Jesus designed the brain and he is the Logos, but I digress. I will say to myself, in the Gospel, the man says, "This is what I shall do. I'll tear down my barns. I'll build the bigger ones. This is where I'm going to store everything." And then he says, "I shall say to myself, now as for you, you have so many good things stored up for many years." As a therapist reading this gospel with a cognitive lens, this is really interesting because he's saying aloud what so many of us do in our heads. We just don't say aloud, or sometimes even in our heads, "Here's what I'm telling myself." But so many times we are telling ourselves certain stories or certain narratives. Our brain loves story. When our brain hears the beginning, middle, and end of a story, we actually get a little hit of serotonin. Our brains are designed for story. And I think there's a lot of reasons for this, are that part of how we know God, receive our salvation, keep our faith, nourish our faith is through the gospel narratives or through the story of salvation. So of course, God would need to design our brain to really need story. Here's how it can work against us though. We have an event happens, and then almost reflexively, we tell ourselves a story about it. And sometimes that story is correct. Like, that person cut me off. They're just trying to be a jerk. Maybe that's the truth. But sometimes it's not. A lot of times it's not. And it's okay that our brains tell ourselves stories. The thing I told myself about this was, but it is important to know that it's happening because then we can challenge it. When I work with couples, many times I will suggest that they say, When you did this, the story I told myself was this. Is that true or is that not? And giving your partner, your husband, a chance to challenge that or let us know that's right, that's not what I meant, because our stories can be shaded by so many things. This is so interesting for me to see the rich man say aloud, I will say to myself. He's naming the narrative. So he's literally talking to his self, his psyche, his soul. He builds a whole narrative, eat, drink, be merry, but he never asks God what to do. This story sounds familiar. Once I finally get this under control, I can relax. This is exactly what thought diffusion trains us to spot. It helps us see our inner scripts that seem logical, but may be disconnected from truth, from God, or from presence. So, what is this application for Catholic mothers? We all have mental barns, which would be the plans, the anxieties, the fears that we overfill in attempt to feel secure. And remember that this gospel is not a gospel against prudence, against planning, against having the things that we need. It's just asking us to have proper order and to include relationship with God. As Catholic moms, we often carry invisible pressure to hold everything together, like the meals, the mood, the mess, the marriages. But when we live in mental overdrive, we miss the moment that is right in front of us. So Jesus isn't asking us to give up caring. He's asking us to stop confusing control with peace. Woo, that is a hard one, right? Because so many times it feels like that. Thought diffusion, or our skill this week, helps us to notice those spiraling thoughts. I have to figure this out right now. I'm failing. If I don't do this, who will? All of those thoughts that sound so familiar, to identify them and to let them pass, not to have them control our behaviors. Being rich in what matters to God might look like stopping to listen, letting go of these mental scripts or these expectations or these unhealthy beliefs, and then praying before we plan. So, what is this thought diffusion, you ask? So glad you did. It's noticing without obeying. When your thoughts start spiraling, you do not have to believe everything you think. I say often to my clients, and you'll probably start hearing me repeat here again and again, feelings are real, but not necessarily true. You can learn over time to have a different relationship with your thoughts and with your feelings. Now, remember, I just said you can learn over time. So I know that it's not as easy as saying, just don't think about it that way, or just relate to it in a different way. It does take time to learn this skill, but over time we can learn to have a different relationship. So this thought diffusion is a CBT or ACT skill that helps you create some space between you and your thoughts. I think back, particularly as a teen, how important this skill would have been for me if I had really known and understood, and maybe my teenage brain wouldn't have gotten it anyways, but to really know that I had a choice for how I would respond to my thoughts, to my emotions, to my urges, that I didn't have to just be taken along for the ride. The fusion is this idea that you and your thoughts, or you and your feelings, are one, they're indistinguishable, and that there's no space between them. So thought diffusion helps give us that space. Let's learn a little more about how we do this. What is this thought diffusion? We went over some of it, so we'll do this very briefly. Most of us live like this. If I think it, it must be true. If I feel it, I must follow it. But that is not actually how the mind or the spiritual life works. Thought diffusion helps us notice these thoughts without having to obey them. It gives us the space to say, this is a thought, not a command. It's a feeling, not a fact. You are not your thoughts. You are the one observing them. You are the one watching them. Here are some common thought spirals you might recognize. I'm not doing enough. If I don't hold it all together, everything's going to fall apart. This means I'm a bad mom. I should be grateful, so why am I so overwhelmed? These thoughts feel automatic, but that does not make them true. And thought diffusion helps us step back from the thoughts. So here's how it works. We name it. I'm having the thought that I'm failing. We observe it. We notice it. We create distance, and then we decide. Here's what this looks like in real time. If the thought is, I'm failing as a mom, then the first step would be to say, I notice that I'm having the thought that I'm failing as a mom. You see how that creates a little bit of distance? I notice that I'm having the thought that I should be able to do this without as much struggle. I notice that I'm having the thought that I'm probably failing my kids. You can think of their thoughts too, like weather. You're looking out a window and clouds pass by. You can watch them pass by. This is the difference between being outside in the rainstorm and being inside with a big window in front of you, watching it pass. That storm is like your thoughts or your emotions. Another example that's given in the literature or the clinical suggestions is thinking about being on a train or in a car and watching the landscape pass. So you're observing. One last analogy, it's the difference between being on the stage in a play and being in the audience watching the play happen. Okay, enough analogies. We get it. This is what we're trying to do with our thoughts. And then we can decide, is this a helpful thought or not? Is this from God? Do I need to act on it? Do I just need to notice it? Is this true? And it's possible that it is true. Maybe there is a certain aspect of your life that you're, quote, failing your kids at. And then what do you do about it? You don't let it overcome you with shame. You notice it, you thank your brain for bringing it forward, and then you say, I need to do something about that. So what is your 1% change, or what is your next right step? But then you're not in this shame spiral so weighed down that you can't do anything. Maybe you're feeling like you're failing your kids with what's coming into the house via media. You say, yeah, that's a real thought. I need to be more aware of that. Then you say, okay, what can I do to help that? Maybe you reach out and say, we need to put internet filtering in our house. We love Bark, by the way, link in the description. Listen to the thoughts and then decide, should they be acted upon? Saint Ignatius of Loyola taught that not all thoughts come from God, even if they sound religious. He warned about spiritual desolation, which imitates holiness, but leads to despair, fear, or paralysis. So Ignatius's discernment of spirits, thought diffusion, helps you say, this thought may or may not be from the Holy Spirit, and I can release it. Here's the neuroscience behind it, just very quickly. Your brain generates thoughts constantly. We estimate over 6,000 thoughts per day. Thought diffusion activates the prefrontal cortex right behind your forehead, last one to finish developing. the reason and reflection part, and it calms the amygdala, which is your fear center. So we're thinking more than we're feeling. Practicing this regularly rewires your brain. It actually rewires your brain and the blood flow towards self-awareness and emotion regulation, instead of letting that amygdala, that panic button, get triggered by that thought. And then suddenly you're off to the races and you're not in a very good position to solve the problem at hand. So remember that this is not just psychological, it's also physiological experience of peace. Thought diffusion can also be thought as a form of surrender. When Jesus says, don't worry about tomorrow, seek first the kingdom, that's not a command to ignore real responsibilities. It's an invitation to trust your God with your mental clutter. Doesn't that sound like an incredible invitation? If someone says, give your mental clutter to me, thank you very much. Thought diffusion is one practical skill that helps you live with an open hand, not stuffing your thoughts, not following the fear, just naming them, noticing, and then deciding the next right thing to do. Remember that there is a link for your handouts, and in your handout, by popular demand, I used to just do one page, like the page on the left, that tells about the skill we're doing, and people asked for more. So that's why it's so important that you comment and give me feedback on what you're liking, what you're not liking, what you want to hear more about, topic ideas, because that's how this happens. You will see several handouts, several worksheets to help you put this in practice. I so value your time, and I'm so thankful that you want to spend some of your Monday with me, and I want to make it worth your while. So I'm also including one family-friendly, low inflammatory menu idea each week. There is your one for this week. And since all of us are starting back to school, if you have kiddos at school, in your handout, you'll also find several calendars that you can print and use if that is helpful for you. With that said, that was a lot. We talked about the gospel, how it reflected or intertwined with thought diffusion. I want us to take just a minute and go back to what we journaled at the beginning. And I would like for you to write down, if you didn't journal at the beginning, that's fine. Start here. Write down a recurring thought or mental loop that's been taking over your inner space. I really want you engaging with this content, because as much as I appreciate you being here and having your little earbuds in and listening to me, if you don't engage with the content, then it's just going to be one more thing, one more piece of media you consumed. I really want it to stick and to help you. So let's just take a few minutes to write down a recurring mental thought or loop and then write it again. But this time, writing it with a silly voice, or imagining it printed on a t-shirt or narrated by a cartoon character. This is another way of creating thought diffusion. If you have a thought that's especially a distressing one that happens over and over again, we can say, I noticed that I'm having the thought that, and then name the thought. But another thing we can do is we can think about it being said fast forwarded or in a silly voice. We can also imagine that thought being in a chair and pushing that chair to the other side of the room. There are many ways that we can do thought diffusion. So let's do this for just a few minutes. And when we do, I'm going to share with you the song for this week. And then I'll be right back to finish up. Stick around, because I'm going to give you the challenges for the week and give you some more exciting info.
I build my life with careful hands, filling rooms with plans and things. But when the silence starts to speak, I hear you ask, what do you bring? Loosen my hands, Lord, let them be free, not holding too tightly to lesser things. When my mind starts to gather and cling, It's easy to think if I just had more, the worry would leave and peace would pour. Treasures in barns can't quiet the storm. It's only your breath that can soften the war. I am not my thoughts, my plans, my fear. You call me beyond what I build here. So when I start clinging, remind me again, the kingdom is now and it's never in when. Loosen my hands, Lord, let them be free, not holding too tightly to lesser things. When my mind starts to gather and claim, whisper your truth and untangle my name. Loosen my hands, loosen my hands. Tonight my soul is yours to keep, not stored in barns, but held in peace. Loosen my hands, Lord, let them be free, not holding too tightly to lesser things. When my mind starts to gather and claim, whisper your truth and untangle my name. Loosen my hands, loosen my hands, loosen my hands, loosen my hands.
All right. Welcome back. Couple comments about the songs. For the most part, I write the songs. I have them tidied a little bit. And since I now have a paralyzed vocal cord and can't sing, I do have some software that helps me put it into a song. And then I can make adjustments, tell it which key I want it in, give it suggestions. I would be happy to post these songs. I'm so glad that y'all like them. I will go ahead and pull the song out and post it separately, if that's okay, in a YouTube playlist. So we'll name the playlist Monday Morning Songs. You can press play, listen to all of them, and share them with your friends. Y'all are welcome to share any of this content. I am many things, but a marketer I am not. So I am asking your help to let other people know we're out there. I did write several emails this week, seeing if some other channels wanted to collab. So, we'll see. Back to business. You know that I'm not going to leave you hanging. That part of what we do here at the Catholic Counseling Institute is give you real skills for real life, taking that theological and philosophical and psychological stuff that sounds and feels great when we hear it and putting it on the ground. What does that mean in real life? Here is your self challenge, your inner self challenge. This week, notice the top 3 negative thoughts that loop in your mind. Each time one comes up, pause and say, I'm having the thought that, and then ask, is this helpful, true, holy, or is it just familiar noise? Familiar noise can be unpleasant, but something familiar about it makes it feel comfortable. And that's how sometimes these things can stick around. Here's your challenge in your marriage. When you catch yourself replaying an internal complaint or prediction about your spouse, try this. Label the thought. I'm having the thought that he never helps unless I ask. Then breathe and notice the emotion and choose a wise, present response instead of reacting from a script. When you get up from the table and sit down on your recliner and pick up your phone, the story I'm telling myself is that I'm the only one expected to do the work and that you're not seeing what I'm doing. Is that true? Notice that the way that you're saying it, there's something called prosody. Prosody is the cadence of your voice. Extreme prosody is like when we talk to babies, oh, you're so sweet, little baby. It helps us learn the flow of the language. Prosody, not in that extreme. Of course, we don't want to be patronizing. That difference in the voice, I just did it right there. See, that helps disarm the other person. It lets them know I'm not coming at you with a dagger. I just want to share. And then you give your spouse the opportunity to say, oh, I didn't know you were feeling that way. Or maybe they say, I threw out my back the other day and it's really hurting. And so I'm picking up my phone, I'm opening Hallow, and I'm saying a prayer for you and for our family. Parenting, when your child's behaviors trigger a strong internal response, pause. Instead of reacting to the first thought, just take 10 seconds to notice it and name it. I'm having the thought that I failed as a mom. From clinical and personal experience, a lot of the strong emotion, particularly the anger that comes up in the face of our kids' bad behaviors, usually what's under that is a lot of fear. And underneath that fear is a lot of love. Having some self-compassion, the reason this is such an extreme response is likely because this behavior creates some fear in you, which is backed by love. Then we walk it back. Most things do not have to be addressed in the moment. When we feel strong emotions, we also feel an urgency. Like, I have to deal with this in this moment. Now, of course, if someone's running out into the street, deal with it in the moment. But even things that feel bigger can take 5, 10, 15 minutes, even an overnight to think about, as long as you come back to it and you can still effectively deal with the issue. So just be aware of that feeling, that urgency that's like, I have to deal with this right now. Here's your seasonal heads up. Back to school prep begins. So get all of those supply list printed. The Feast of Saint Dominic is August the 8th. This is a great time to return to the rosary. Planning your fall schedule. My kids are not huge fans of this, but I strongly believe in keeping a paper planner. I make them keep a paper planner, and I'm going to ask you to keep a paper planner too. Even if you also have a digital one, I do have a digital one, but I think there's something about seeing a planner, knowing where you are in space, that can be really helpful. And I don't want you to have to spend money. So of course, in your handout, I gave you some calendars that you can use as planners. However, if y'all would like to know my favorite planner, I will drop it in the comments. And remember that you don't have to do everything right now. We just have to get ready for the first week. You can donate old clothes, school supplies that can be used by others. And your home task this week is to declutter a homework space or a home office space and to create that family calendar. Also, if y'all want to know how to meal plan in roughly 30 minutes to an hour and have the plan done for the rest of your life, let me know. I have a meal planning technique that I teach in the survival mode homemaking. If y'all want me to put it in Monday morning moments, just comment below. I'll look at the comments. If it's not something you want, then let's do something else. Remember, if you would like these handouts sent to you every Monday so that you don't have to ask me each time, there's the code and a link. That survival mode homemaking course is up and ready. So use your coupon code for Monday Morning Moments for Catholic moms. It's in the description. It's already not an expensive course, but it's for my lovely ladies that come and join me on Monday. I have a coupon code for you. You don't need a coupon code for surviving the first 30 days after betrayal. infidelity, or pornography disclosure. These courses are free and will always be free for you and for anybody else who may need them. I know some of the priests in the Archdiocese of San Antonio are giving out cards that have these free courses. It's for the woman. It's for those first 30 days to walk with you day by day. So I can be there with you anytime, day or night. Even if you get to therapy, you may not get to it for 30 days, and it's usually once a week. So you need support every single day. It's not instead of therapy, but it's to support. So there's 30 videos in each, entire handbooks. These took a long time, and I'm proud of them in the sense that I'm happy that they've got good info and that they can help people in need. So share those. And then by request, we have a grief course coming up. Let me know what other courses you want. I'm not sure after this if I should do parenting or anxiety, so let me know. Let us end with our prayer. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Jesus, thank you for reminding us that our thoughts are not the truth. You are the truth. Peace does not come from perfect plans or big barns, but from your presence, your providence, and your promises. Help us leave today with lighter hearts. Help us notice our thoughts without obeying them, to catch the spiral before it begins, and to choose you again and again over fear. Teach us to store up what cannot be lost: compassion, mercy, presence, love. Give us the grace to raise children who knows where true treasure lies. Jesus, make us rich in what matters to you. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Thank you so much for spending your Monday morning with me. The free handout link is in the description. I will put up the song separately and create a playlist in case you need a playlist to put in your earbuds when you're hanging out and doing all of the back to school or the cleaning. If you have any suggestions, things you want to hear, let me know in the comments. That's how I build content and want to serve you. So let me know what you need to hear more about. Please feel free to share this, to subscribe. It really does help let YouTube know, hey, this isn't just an empty channel here. People are here. People like this, and then they'll send it out to other ladies who don't know we're here. So if it's a good free resource, let's share it with our sisters. I hope you have a fantastic week, and I will be right back here, ready to journal and pray and learn with you next Monday at 9.